I'm now pleased to introduce our next speaker. He is going to be speaking about the DoD's Thunderdome program. When I heard that, I immediately thought of Tina Turner and We Don't Need Another Hero. I think Dr. Brian Herman is a hero for all of us. He is the PEO and Director of DISA's Cybersecurity and Analytics Directorate. You can read his bio by looking on our program. It's very impressive. Dr. Herman.
Thank you. I guess I think the order of the presentations that we've had thus far are, very well scripted, because we talked about the operational threats that are out there. We talked about what zero trust actually is, and I really like that we talked about this as a journey, because I kind of don't like the name zero trust. I think zero trust is great if you're doing greenfield and you start that way. But the reality for us in the Department of Defense is much more complicated than that. I'll clean up an old joke with, if you have a physicist and an engineer practitioner at the end of a very long hallway and you tell them every 5 minutes they can walk halfway to this pot of Bitcoin at the end of the hallway, the physicist will quit and leave because they know that they'll never get to the end of the hallway. The engineer will say, for all practical purposes, I'll get close enough. So that's really where I look at DoD's movement towards zero trust. We have a lot to do, and we have to prioritize the work that we have to accomplish. And so we are embarking on an ambitious and important transition to a zero trust cybersecurity model from the castle and moat, the defense in depth network-centric approach. And so we have a lot of things that we have to accomplish to get there. And I'll walk you through some of them, how they relate to the pillars. I think I would characterize our journey as probably in that intermediate range right now. Hopefully we'll get to the point where we can give a good case study of how we accomplish what we're trying to do here as well. So we are, first off, in terms of the pillars, identity is a key focus of what we're doing in the Department of Defense. We've had centralized identity within the Department of Defense for 10 years. We have recently moved that function to a secure cloud, and we are in the process of getting everybody to understand that there will not be a single identity service or identity provider within the Department of Defense, in part because we have responsibilities for things like tactical networks that aren't going to be connected to some enterprise cloud somewhere. But what they do have to be is synchronized and federated so that we have verification of that identity even if they're at the tactical edge to be able to access systems. So we call it our ICAM program, Identity Credentialing and Management, and we have a number of activities. We are building now, maybe you won't be surprised, maybe you will, we're building a replacement for what has historically been a paper-based process for getting access to systems. The DD Form 2875 has been the way that you got access to a system. You signed it, your security manager signed it, your supervisor, whoever was the owner of the mission application, signed it as well. So we're building an automated process for that based on authoritative data so that we can verify training and credentials and security clearance and all that kind of thing. So ICAM is going, it's moving along. We're working on federation. It matters to the Department of Defense because one, think about JADC2. The whole focus of getting information to the right people and knowing that information is valid and correct information is essential to JADC2. But you may even be surprised, and probably John from the last presentation will not be surprised, that it's important to us in the DoD in terms of our financial audit as well, so that we can verify who entered a transaction, who approved a transaction. We can implement things like segregation of duty to make sure that the same person can't do both of those things. So ICAM is moving along. It's, I would say, fairly mature and continuing to move. We also have a pretty significant investment in trying to manage the devices that the department is connected to. So we have endpoint security tools. We have something that we call Comply to Connect that gathers up all the telemetry associated with that endpoint. And when we implement the rest of this Thunderdome concept that I'll talk through, it will actually be the source of the data about the device that we'll use to make those granular access control decisions. In terms of the network, our network is not where it needs to be in terms of the architecture. We're going to implement what we'll call, SD-WAN, so that we can have microsegmentation and we can have automated management of the mesh that really hasn't been done in the past. So one of the themes that you'll get out of what the DoD is trying to accomplish is we can't man our way or people our way out of this problem. In order to be responsive to the pace of cyber attacks that we're facing, we have to automate and we have to trust the automation. And to do that, we need some of these zero trust principles. Because of the way we're architected, the DoD, you won't be surprised, is a very federated network architecture with a backbone connected to separate networks that all depend upon trust, but we don't necessarily have visibility into all pieces of that centrally within the Department of Defense. We have to get better at that. The applications and the data on the Department of Defense's networks are not following the principle of verifying only the limited access that a particular user should have. Some do, some don't. We have recent examples of modern applications like the DoD is using a secure version of O365 now. And one of the successes that we've had there is that we actually have the ability to tell if you come in from outside on the internet on a non-DoD computer, but you present your common access card and that's verified, we actually make a decision that says you can see your email, you can read it, you send emails, but you can't download it, you can't print it, so we prevent exfiltration. That's easier to do with modern applications than it is to do with some of our legacy applications. And so we can't depend upon every vendor of every application that we have to have that in place. And so we're trying to put the application security stacks in place so that all of our applications are able to take advantage of those kind of granular access decisions. Visibility and analytics, well discussed last time. We have operators, cyber defensive operators that are out there logging into dozens of systems to get visibility for what they need. We can't do that. It's just not going to work for us when we have to have people on every application, on every network separately. We need to be able to bring that data together, and we need to automate it. So we have to spend time figuring out what it is that's eating their lunch, if you will, and figure out how we can improve the automation, automated response, and the orchestration of activities. So we're doing this not just because we need to align with the digital transformation strategy and the president's executive order, but we have to reduce some of the costs associated with what we're doing right now. We have to streamline the architecture a bit. It is complicated. Certainly, we have understood the reality of having workforce that's now not necessarily inside of our DoD networks by default. As they come from outside the network, we designed our old architecture to prevent people from coming in, and then we opened up all the doors and said, we got to let them in. And so if you do that with a legacy architecture, you present some risks. And so we need to get past those. We need to get past everybody having to VPN in for everything. We need to be able to take advantage of things like bring your own device sometimes as well. I believe this fundamentally changes certainly my organization. We have folks that have worked on perimeter, worked on analytics, worked on endpoint. All that changes, and we're merging the infrastructure components of our architecture with the cybersecurity components of our architecture in ways that we never thought about before. And it makes people uncomfortable. We're used to, if something fails, we manually change some circuits and get the data flowing back again. That's not the way we're going to be able to do this in the fast-paced environment that we're facing right now. So what are we doing? And Thunderdome, I do like the name. I probably wouldn't have chosen it, but it is fairly valid because because we are in something of a warm war right now. You know, the world out there is somewhat ungoverned in cyberspace, and it's nation-state actors, it's non-state actors that are trying to get after it, and we're all in this together. So I depend upon you to help me make sure that I can defend the DoD's networks better. You also, in addition to helping us do that, have to defend your networks, because those second and third order effects of having, you know, weapon systems designs, leaked or connected to our adversaries. We can't afford that, and so we're in the same boat in many ways. But also, we do care about the critical infrastructure of the nation, because that is a target, and we have to defend against targets, even if it's hard to see. And so hopefully everybody understands that that's the big challenge for us here. Thunderdome is a prototype effort that we're doing right now. So I guess if you think about the journey, we're prototyping some capabilities against the Zero Trust reference architecture. And we DISA kind of developed that in partnership with a number of organizations published by the DoD CIO. I think it's eventually going to get rolled into the Cybersecurity Reference Architecture, or CSRA, after this version 2.0 is released and move out. So Thunderdome has caused a lot of consternation among the Department of Defense. In part because everybody wants to understand what the scope of it is and who can take advantage of it and how that will work. And so what we're doing first is piloting the capabilities in a lab environment. So we're simulating unclassified networks and classified networks. So for classified networks, we're actually just air gapping them completely. And you can think about it. We have totally different threat vectors associated with networks that aren't connected to the internet than we do with those networks that are actually connected to the internet. And so we have different requirements to achieve the goals of those pillars of Zero Trust. So different tools, think about that. You know, we might be able to use cloud-based SASE applications to get after some things on the unclassified networks, but we can't on the classified networks until those kind of capabilities exist in a secure, approved government cloud that we can use for that purpose. But we can't wait for that. So we're gonna move out with this lab deployment, and then we'll move to a fielded deployment of the capabilities this summer. In the late fall, we'll be making a fielding decision of the capabilities that we will produce to use across the DoD's networks, primarily on the backbone that DISA is responsible for, and also the other cyber terrain that we own kind of locally as well. We don't own the Army's networks, for example, or the Air Force's networks, but we are partnering with them. So the Air Force is moving out on some Zero Trust principles as well. We partnered with them so that our evaluation this summer will be comparing the capabilities that we put in place, but also looking to determine where we actually, all in the Department of Defense, need to use the exact same technologies and where we can allow choice about those technologies. So I'm not a big fan of becoming, dependent upon any one partner for these capabilities. You'll see that there's a number of technologies that are part of that. But I will say that some of the technologies are immature in that they don't rely on standards. And that means that we have some challenges if we don't synchronize the activities of the Department of Defense to make sure that we can take advantage of all the benefits of Zero Trust across our networks. And so that's the part of the mission of the DoD CIO's new Zero Trust Portfolio Management Office. They don't run the programs, but they keep us all talking to make sure that we're able to take advantage of it. So what are we implementing as part of this? We're streamlining our router user experience, micro-segmenting the network, and modernizing the perimeter. And we're depending upon those, what I call cybersecurity enabler technologies like ICAM, endpoint, comply to connect, et cetera. So the first capability beyond the ICAM stuff is that we're implementing, a secure access service edge, or SASE solution, I don't really want to, honestly, I don't really want to talk about the particular vendors that we have as part of this, because part of the reason we're doing it in a lab first, find out if this is going to fail. If it fails, pivot to something different and move on. So we're working all of that right now. We want to get rid of a lot of the dependence that we have right now on VPNs and make sure that users that are accessing data and applications land where they should. You don't want to land users in the backbone of the DoD's networks just because that's where the VPNs have landed them in the past. That's another one of those artifacts of doing things fast. When the pandemic hits, you have to change that going forward. So SASE is part of the solution. One of the challenges that we have in that space, though, we would really like to use an IL4 or Impact Level 4, Impact Level 5 cloud offering of SASE. They're not there yet for us right now. And so we need to get that there in order to make sure that that's going to be a good approach for us on our unclassified networks. And we need that full routing support, conditional access. We even need BYOD sometimes, especially think about the Army National Guard that needs to be able to access, but only do it infrequently and oftentimes from their own computers. And we have to integrate these capabilities with existing perimeter defenses that we have as well. So the perimeter doesn't go away, the perimeter changes, and we have things like cloud-based internet isolation so that we can, detonate, bad web-based threats outside of the DoD's network, and frankly, reduce some of the throughput requirements for our internet access points as well. So we're gonna still have a lot of that perimeter. We're gonna have to bring that together with the new telemetry associated with the capabilities that we put in place. I am particularly excited about SD-WAN and the customer edge security stacks that we're putting in place. SD-WAN is going to change the backbone of the Department of Defense. That's an area where I'm particularly worried about whether we all need the same technologies to get all that same value benefit. Right now, what we do is we have a customer edge connection to the DoD backbone. And that is, it's managed in a number of different ways. But the question is, if I have one SD-WAN approach on the backbone and they have a different approach in some separate network that's attached to the backbone, do we get all the benefits of microsegmentation, optimizing traffic routing, QoS, and so on? So that's an area that we're going to try to test out and make sure it works for us. The application security stacks, we still have applications on-prem. And we have a growing number of applications that are in secure commercial clouds. And so we're trying to make sure that we can put application security stacks so all of those applications, whether legacy or modern, can take advantage of that microsegmentation. The cyber SA, as I mentioned, is a problem. It's a problem because we have a number of applications that users, the defensive cyber operators, have to log into to determine, frankly, if something's happening. When I walk around a conference like this, it's not uncommon for me to see vendors that have automated applications that allow or enable up to 85, 90% automation of the threat response. That's not really there right now. We build some of that stuff in, but it's not anywhere near that in my world right now. In fact, we block IP addresses, and you'll hear in a stand-up brief in the morning about how we've blocked X number of IP addresses. How quickly do you think the adversary changes those IP addresses and moves on? How effective is that approach? We need to do different things to make sure that we can secure that. So I guess one thing that I would ask, and I think we started to hear it in the last presentation, I would ask for help on how the DoD gets through this journey. We're getting started. We have some areas that are more mature than others, but we need to understand in a very complex, probably the most complex network architecture you could imagine, how do we make this journey? And with the goal in mind of zero trust, but understanding that expecting perfection out of the gate is unrealistic. So we take steps along the way. What are the right steps? How do we do this together as a partnership? I wish I could start with greenfield. I just don't think that that's an option for us. I mentioned before I need to understand, and I would love to get this feedback, is about which of those technologies that the Department of Defense needs to standardize on, and where we think that technologies that support zero trust are actually open to choice. I think that's important. We are blending the infrastructure and cybersecurity architecture that makes both groups in the Department of Defense very uncomfortable. The folks that have run infrastructure and the folks that do cybersecurity. We're changing the perimeter, and that makes everybody concerned. I guess one of the things that I have learned thus far on the journey, and I think it was discussed just a little bit, is if you're talking to somebody and they think they can sell you zero trust in a box, you know they're lying to you. So it is truly a philosophy. It is a target for where we want to achieve, but it's not going to get there today, and it's going to take a number of steps, and we probably won't finish the journey. But the concepts are right. The concepts are, how do we make sure that when a user accesses something on the DoD's networks, that they are challenged, that they're personally challenged about their identity, they're challenged about the state of their device, about where they're coming from, and we make those granular access decisions. That changes everything. So to be fair, every application owner in the Department of Defense needs to think about those problems and develop the policies associated with the data and their application. And that's a lot. Just in the financial space, the list is voluminous. And I don't want to just focus on that. I have others that are even more important to me. I know money's important, but I really care about whether somebody gets in and manipulates data associated with command and control capabilities for the Department of Defense. We can't afford that. We've done something I think interesting in the DoD, which is to use other transaction authority or OTA contracting as the way that we put the Thunderdome contract in place. And I'm particularly happy about that. Even though it sounds a little odd, the vendor that we chose is a fairly traditional integrator, but they front a number of technologies that haven't necessarily always been part of the DoD's networks. So the combination actually is fairly powerful for us. We have somebody that understands the complexity we're up against, and then backing them up, we have innovators in the space that are able to now understand those two things together and help us come up with solutions for the Department of Defense. I don't think it will be perfect. I think we will find problems. I don't think that the answer is just coming from our effort as well. That's why we're partnering with the other services to make sure that we can get after the problem. So I'm really excited about what we're doing with Thunderdome. I think the technology mix is appropriate and blended enough. I don't want to become, like I said, a single vendor shop in this space. But I would encourage you to connect with us in our role in defending the DoD's networks. If you have solutions, if you think, and we have videos about the specific technologies that are being chosen, and I can talk about those later on as well if somebody wants to talk about it. But if you think you have alternative approaches or that we're headed in the wrong direction, I'm all ears. I really want to hear what it is that you would recommend. I know my problem is more complex than most, but I think what we're doing is the right thing, which is taking that first step. We're going to retire some legacy infrastructure in the Department of Defense as well. The Joint Regional Security Stacks, JRSS capability that's been in place for about 10 years. I guess 2 months ago now, we made a decision across the department to discontinue implementing those stacks in INDOPACOM. And the reason that's important to me is because I can drive those costs down and start investing in things for zero trust future. But the issue is, we just heard about who the adversary is for the future, right? It's in INDOPACOM. And so the impetus for me now that we're not going to have those other capabilities in place, is to put zero trust principles to work in INDOPACOM first. And that part of the world faces the tyranny of distance and any number of challenges there. And so that's one of the 3 locations that we will be piloting our capability this summer, is in the Indo-PACOM region. We're going to do it with a challenging bunch of customers in the Pentagon, and we're going to do it with some folks at Fort Meade to make sure that we can test it out before we go too far broad with the capabilities. But again, our intent is to get through this implementation, get through some testing. Sometimes in the past, we haven't treated cybersecurity as an official kind of program of record, if you will, which meant that we had critics from the operational test community, from Congress, that were concerned about whether we were doing the right thing. We're going to do the right thing here. We're going to do operational assessments. We're going to do operational testing of the capabilities that we put in place. We're going to compare it against other alternatives, and we're also going to compare it against what we have today to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. So we want to be very focused on a methodical approach to take these steps. Like I said, it won't be perfect out of the gate, but I do think it is the right thing for us to do to take this first step. With that, I'll close and accept any questions you might have.
Thanks very much, Dr. Herman. So before I go to the live audience, I'd like to know if we have any questions from our virtual audience. I'm going to go over to Ben here.
Yes, we do.
All right, Ben.
So from one virtual attendee, Alex, was asking, Brian, are there any recommended links that you can provide for more information, where to stay up to date, like what the best places to look are?
Sure. So I guess I'll echo some of the things that we heard before. The links about the impetus for why we would want to do zero trust, the risks associated with cybersecurity right now are all good ones. The NIST architecture, the DoD's zero trust reference architecture are all good places to start. We have a couple videos that are out there that I can give you separately some links on what technologies specifically we are testing in the Department of Defense. For maybe some obvious reasons, I don't necessarily want to put up a big architectural diagram of what the DoD's networks look like, but trust me, it's complex. And you really don't want me to try to explain it. So yeah, we'll get some links out there. Thanks.
Okay, question over here.
Thank you. Good morning. What role do you see, if any, for post-quantum cryptography in your zero trust roadmap, specifically as you field test and put the software in the laboratory environments?
So we have a group of folks at DISA that have been linked up with some other experts around the world to try to make sure that we're addressing quantum factors associated with that. I think the first place that I get concerned is the ability to hijack identity, which causes me a lot of concern. And so we have conversations about getting past the current state of PKI, or public key encryption that we're using in the Department of Defense. What does that look like in the future? I think that has a lot of play in the quantum space especially.
Okay, right up front.
Just a real.
Oh, before, can we have our panelists who are coming up for the next panel and Bryant Hoagley get mic'd, please? So if you could come visit our friends at Media Boss on the stage left. Sir, stand up if you don't mind.
Oh, Juan from Tomorrow.io. Do you still see the client VPN as a viable way of connecting for the DoD? I mean, I only ask, I've defended through several ransomwares, and I have completely eliminated the client VPN, utilize VDI technologies.
I think it's fair to say our target is that we would like to eliminate it. I don't know. I honestly don't know how long that journey is, but I do think it's problematic for a number of reasons, and one of them is because we don't necessarily land users the way where we need them to land. It may be possible to make those things still effective for us if we put the right controls around where VPN users land, what data that they have access to, but we really want to get away from it. There is I guess it's fair to say that COVID challenged our user experience as well, not just the cybersecurity. Because I always say I could take away the keyboards, we'd be a lot more secure, but our networks wouldn't do much, you know. And so I think that the routing associated with going to a SASE and SD-WAN approach is going to be much better for us. So users can access secure cloud applications directly without going through the DoD's networks. I think that's going to be it's going to change the game for them. Internal to the Department of Defense, we still have some routing problems. What we have done historically with the JRSS stacks is we've actually hairpinned data traffic to go through those stacks, which may be around the world from them, and then come back to applications and data that may be very near them. And that's not a good approach. We got to put security at the application end. We got to put security at the customer edge to make sure that we have good paths and a good user experience, because I have to balance that as part of this. And I think we also have probably more stuff on the endpoint than we need. We did a recent evaluation of about 14 or 15 case studies of data that we need to be able to provide for a number of different reasons. And we found at least one tool that's millions of dollars across the Department of Defense that we can eliminate from the desktop and make the user experience better as part of that as well.
Okay, another question from the virtual audience.
Yes, would you just any quick recommendations for how a small business, small cyber business might get involved with this and with DoD? Whether it's adapted through the SBIR program or other recommendations you might have.
So I guess I would say, in terms of DISA, we have a small business office that is our first point of contact for that. But then if you have an idea for me, I'm all ears, like I said. And we can even, so one of the values of the OTA approach that we've taken is we have an integrator, and they're bringing in different technologies. And those technologies don't necessarily have to stay the same over time. And so we can link up specific new emerging technologies and more promising technologies to make part of the solution going forward as well.
All right, as a contracts lawyer, I'm great to hear that you're using innovative contracts as well to do that program.
I'll admit that at first I thought, well, is that an innovative approach if we have an integrator up front? Because I expected to hear companies that had never done business with the DoD that said, hey, I got a better way to do cybersecurity. But the complexity of what we have means that they need to understand that as well. And that's a hard thing to explain to people that haven't been in this space. And so we got to blend those two things, and I think it's working out well.
So you'll stick around for a while to
Absolutely.
answer any questions?
Sure.
All right, thanks very much, Dr. Herman.
Right.